The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Welcome back to Harrogate again, everybody. Now, there's no denying we've seen plenty of places around this part of Yorkshire which look absolutely beautiful. And if you admire this place as much as I do, well, no one can really blame you. A few famous people have admired this in their time, and one of them has a big connection to this building here. That's the entrance to a hall, and it belongs to the parish of Farnley. Farnley, ferny clearing. We continue through the Lees today, ploughing our way north through the forest of Knaresborough. Today we take on Farnley, and it's important not to confuse this place with another of the same name. This Farnley is within the former Harrogate district, whilst the other, much larger settlement is within Leeds. Farnley means ferny clearing, once again cementing the fact that these tiny villages were first established in a heavily forested area. In this case, there would have been plenty of ferns. It's mentioned in the Domesday Book as Farnley and Farnley. Farnley village is very small. It sits to the north of the impressive Farnley Hall and to the south of the River Washburn. Those two extremes of the parish are arguably more interesting than the village itself. Farnley Hall is a stately home built by John Carr of York. It was linked to the artist J.M.W. Turner, who often roamed the forest of Knaresborough with his sketchbook. A selection of Turner's works from the Farnley Hall collection was sold in 1890 for £25,000. The house has a rich history, being also connected with names such as Fairfax, Cromwell and Fawkes. As for the Washburn, well, here in Farnley, you can't really describe it as a river. Take a trip north of the village and you'll be met with something far larger, one of the Washburn Valley's major reservoirs. In the village itself, we'll meet a pretty little church, but also a school which fans of Emmerdale may well recognise. It was, and still often is, used for filming in the popular ITV soap opera. Come with me then, and let's put Farnley on the map. We start proceedings today by driving towards Farnley Hall, a stately home to the south of the main village. A Grade 1 listed building and originally 17th century, the house was added to in the 1780s by John Carr, who also designed Harewood House nearby. The house consists of a square block with earlier and later L-shaped wings at the rear, and it's built of gritstone and ashlar. It has stone slate and lead roofs. The history of the place is pretty eye-opening, and it's linked to a famous artist. Farnley Hall was occupied in the 1780s by Francis Fawkes. After his death in 1786, it was inherited by his distant relative Walter Hawkesworth, who adopted the surname Fawkes by royal licence. He would then commission Carr to build the new range alongside the old. When Walter Fawkes died in 1792, the hall passed to his son, again another Walter Hawkesworth, who too adopted the surname Fawkes. This man would go on to be known as Walter Ramsden Fawkes. He was MP for Yorkshire in 1806 and was High Sheriff of Yorkshire in 1823. During his tenure, a regular visitor was the Victorian artist and philosopher John Ruskin, who was taken by the hall's enormous collection of paintings. Most of them were landscapes painted by J.M.W. Turner, a close friend of Ramsden Fawkes. Between 1808 and 1824, Farnley was something of a second home to Turner. Ramsden Fawkes owned over 250 Turner watercolours and 6 large oil paintings. A selection of Turner's works from the Farnley Hall collection was sold in 1890 for £25,000. The Fawkes family remain here today. In fact, the only time they weren't in residence at Farnley was back in the 1940s, when the hall was used as a maternity hospital. Even today, the connection between Farnley, Turner and the Fawkes family still exists. Nicholas Horton Fawkes owned and carefully restored the house until his death in 2011. Horton Fawkes served as president of the Turner Society before his passing. Incidentally, Guy Fawkes, the man behind the gunpowder plot, was related to the Fawkes of Farnley. Now, Of course, all these buildings I've been showing you are related to Farnley Hall, but they're not actually Farnley Hall. The hall itself is up the private track next to the lodge and the fountain and all that kind of stuff. This is all the stable block or other buildings associated with it. So it's quite clearly they're residents only there, so I'm not going to go any further than just here. But you get the idea. It's a big estate and a big hall and lots of things to talk about with it. The village itself, though, that's a different kettle of fish. Let's go up there now and check it out. Okay, here we are then in Farnley village, and you can see behind me a fine looking church. That's going to be the last thing we touch in the village itself. To begin proceedings, I'm going to walk from here to the other end. Now I can actually see the other end of Farnley village from here because it's that small. Let me show you. Turn the camera around. You can see a lane that runs off into the distance over there and then turns right. Now if you head down there and turn right, that takes you back to Farnley Hall. But I'm only going as far as that corner because up there is our first landmark, and it's a school. Farnley village has a modest number of landmarks and an equally small number of houses. Mind you, what it lacks in number, it makes up for in interest. Here's one of the places in Farnley which should have special relevance to some telly addicts. This building was Farnley C.V. Primary School, situated at the edge of the small village. It was much smaller than most primary schools. That fact was highlighted back in 2014 when a report in the Ilkley Gazette stated there were just 2 pupils on roll here. Yes, 2. Farnley Primary was closed down at the end of that December following a decision by members of North Yorkshire County Council to stop maintaining it. The 2 pupils remaining were sent to North Rigton as an alternative. Described in the article as beleaguered, Farnley School could not afford to appoint a head teacher and was put into special measures after being judged inadequate. There was a group set up committed to keeping the school open, but they were extremely disappointed by the final decision to close. These days, the former school is a nursery called Chapter 1 Childcare, but it also has another use. This has, in the past, and still is used occasionally, for filming of the TV show Emmerdale. Even though most of Emmerdale is shot within the grounds of Harewood House, a lot is filmed in several locations in West Yorkshire. Farnley Primary School has been used in some episodes of the show. So too has Benton Park School in Rawdon, which acts as the secondary school used in the series. It's a short walk now up to the other main landmark in the village, the church. This little amble will give you an idea of just how small Farnley village is. I tell you what, when you look at that, it's no wonder Turner was good at landscapes. He had this as inspiration, didn't he? Absolutely fantastic. I love it. Yorkshire is one of the most beautiful places in the world. Fight me, I know I'm right. Okay, now we're almost at the end of Farnley village here. We've been heading towards this gateway, and we all know what's down there, don't we? The church. All Saints Church was built in the 13th century, but at some point much of it was demolished, with the former chancel serving as a chapel. A new church was commissioned by Askew Fawkes and was completed in 1851, reusing most of the walling from that earlier chapel. The church was Grade 2 listed in 1985. It's made of gritstone with a slate roof and is in the early English style. It consists of a nave and a chancel in one unit, a south porch and a bellcote on the west gable. The windows are lancets. Some of the stained glass is 17th century and was designed by Henry Giles. It was originally made for Hawksworth Hall and was moved to Farnley Hall before being installed in the church. Stones from the old building were used in the rebuilding, and parts of the north wall seem to have not been demolished at all. Some archaeologists have detected Roman tooling on some of the exterior stones, indicating that the medieval church had itself used stones from a much earlier building. Got a military grave here in the churchyard. This one here, look. It's a rather big headstone. Lieutenant Colonel Peter Alexander Templeton. Died in 2011. And I've noticed as well, in this graveyard, there's quite a few people with the same surname. For example, these two here both have the surname Wood. And there's another Wood behind them. And over in that corner, there's a lot of Housemans. So Woods and Housemans, very much a popular name here in Farnley. Okay, now we need to head out of the churchyard back to the car, because we are not fully finished with this episode just yet. You see, on the parish boundary between Farnley and Norwood, there's a rather big landmark which we definitely do need to see. Now, moving away from Farnley, we're heading north to the River Washburn, except when we get there we'll be faced with something that's a tad bigger than just a river. You see, a city the size of Leeds needs water, a good supply of water, and lots of it. In this part of the Washburn Valley, there are several reservoirs, and the easiest way to create one of those reservoirs is to build a dam. Okay, so here we are at Lindley Wood Reservoir. Would you take a look at this beautiful reservoir? Absolutely fantastic. Now, this is one of 4 in the Washburn Valley. 4, and this is probably the anomaly of the 4. It's one that's slightly different to the other 3. You'll see what I mean in a minute when we start talking about it. But they all look absolutely fantastic, don't they? If they all look like this, they're all going to be great. Let's have a little bit of a natter about this, shall we? Lindley Wood is the oldest of the reservoirs in the Washburn Valley. It was built between 1869 and 76 by navvies. It was the first of a chain of 4 built along the Washburn Valley. Further up that valley are 3 others, named Thrushcross, Fewston and Swinsty. The capacity of this one is about 750 million imperial gallons. While the 3 higher reservoirs provide water to the city of Leeds, Lindley Wood provides compensation flows to the Washburn. In 2003, the dam crest was raised 9.8 feet, as the original height would have been overtopped during the probable maximum flood, or PMF for short. This was part of a £6.5 million scheme to make Swinsty, Fewston and Lindley Wood reservoirs meet improved flood standards. The reservoir keeper's house at the dam was originally planned to be demolished during that work, but was built into the new, higher crest as bats were found to be living there. In 1872, during Lindley Wood's construction, a lady named Elizabeth Garnett was moved by the living conditions of the workers and their families who were camped here, building it. Garnett would therefore open a Sunday school at the site and within a year resolved to move the camp. Backing her up was the Reverend Lewis Moule Evans, and together they founded what was known as the Navvies Mission. Lindley Wood can be described as quiet. It's perhaps the least known of the Washburn reservoirs, but really it shouldn't be. It's a beautiful area to explore. There's no direct path covering the whole circumference of the water's edge, but there is instead a 6-mile circular walk that takes in the surrounding area, providing expansive views of the lower Washburn Valley. Lindley Wood Reservoir sits on a parish boundary. Part of it falls within Lindley, not Farnley, and that means tomorrow we'll see it again. Join me for more roamings around the Washburn Valley and the Forest of Knaresborough as we take on another village with Lee as its suffix. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.